Hey everyone, welcome back to the Planting Roots podcast. I'm Stephen Partain, one of the pastors of Grace Community Church in New Orleans, Louisiana. Have you ever known someone that always talked a good game about living right, about doing the right things, about caring for others, but when things actually happen, when they actually had to make tough decisions about doing the right thing, they didn't follow through? Well, in the book of Isaiah, the prophet that we're going to walk through the next few months, in many ways, this is the situation that is happening in Israel. Isaiah has a message to the people of Israel. We talked about that prophets speak on behalf of God. And this message is not one they're excited to hear. If you look at chapter 1 and verse 1, you read the following. It says, "The vision of Isaiah, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah." He's addressing an issue that exists for a long period of time. He's not sending this writing to them because, hey, there is this one issue this one time. Over king after king after king, over years and decades, there's been a problem in the people of Israel. There's something that's happening that's not lining up with God's desire for his people. As we keep reading, we get down to verse 2, and God is speaking here, says, "I raised children and brought them up, but they rebelled against me." Moving down even further, we read, "Hey, offending nation, a people heavy with waywardness, offspring of evil people, decadent children, they've abandoned Yahweh." So we're speaking to the people of Israel. Isaiah is speaking to them. And what he's saying is this: look, you started off with all the blessings and the goodness that God could give you. That Yahweh, your God, has blessed you, and yet you have turned away from God. You have rebelled from God. In reality, everything that you say with your lips doesn't line up with your life. Right? Just like we talked about earlier, what's happening externally, what they're saying and doing on the outside, does not fit who they are on the inside, who they're supposed to be as God's people. And so God is not pleased with this. And his reaction to this is not happiness, but anger and judgment against his people. If we keep working down to verse 10, it says, "Listen to Yahweh's word," speaking to the people, "rulers of Sodom. Give your ear to our God's teaching, people of Gomorrah." Verse 11, "What use to me is the abundance of your sacrifices? I'm full of burnt offerings of rams and the fat of well-fed animals, and the blood of bulls and lambs and goats I do not delight." So what God is doing, he's comparing them to Sodom and Gomorrah. These are two of the most wicked cities in the history of the Old Testament. They abused the poor. They were sexually immoral. They only cared about themselves. They built kingdoms that didn't include anyone other than themselves. And so what God is saying is going, you are like those people. You are the same as those people, and I'm sick of your offerings and your sacrifices. What God is saying to his people is, I don't care if you follow all the rules if your hearts are not with me. I don't care if the sacrifices that you give fulfill all the laws on paper. If you do the right thing externally and your heart doesn't care about my law, my values, my kingdom, then you're not living in line with what God has for you. In many ways, Isaiah is setting the stage to rebuke the people of Israel, to speak to them that they have gotten out of line with God's vision for the world and God's vision for his people. God desires a people that are like him, that are shaped by his teachings and his law. And in reality, if we have a community of people that only do the right things with their words, but never do it with their actions and with their lives, then it doesn't line up with what God has for us. And throughout this book, we're going to see this message of Isaiah, right? But also, after the message of judgment, there's going to be a message of hope that comes as well. So I encourage you to take some time to get into chapter 1 of Isaiah. There's a lot there. Read into the book. Get into the narrative of what Isaiah is saying, and begin to journey with us on what does it mean to have the outside and the inside of our lives match up as we journey together in this prophet and plant roots together in Scripture. Thanks for being with me, and we'll see you again soon.